the end of the day, Republican primaries attract the highest propensity of voters. So those are the people who are motivated to come out. They're not the people who are apathetic and are who are going to stay home that might vote in a general election, but the people that vote in primaries are the most enthusiastic, and Trump has the enthusiasm behind him, not only for being a great campaigner, but also for his record as president of the United States.
Well, let's speak now to Catalina Lauf, former Republican congressional nominee. Catalina, good morning.
Hi, good morning. Thanks
Very
for
good.
having me today.
Oh, no, it's a pleasure. Sorry, I was just saying, very good to speak to you. Thanks for being with us. Right, let's talk about Donald Trump, shall we? Because anything else would seem foolish to start with. Is he going to win, and by how much, in your estimation?
I think he will absolutely take it home. It really does depend on, to Amy's point, on how many moderates do cross over to either independent or those who change their party affiliation. I also wanted to echo what Luis was saying about the difference between Iowa and New Hampshire, because it is so interesting to just see how the American political electorate is so different in New Hampshire than it is in Iowa. To Louise's point, Iowa is so much more conservative. There's a lot more of an evangelical base. There's a lot more baby boomers who are voting in that primary. And not to mention the fact that even though it's a huge state, New Hampshire actually has double the turnout because it's such a part of their political culture. And the New Hampshire electorate, interestingly enough, is there's going to be a lot more, you're going to see a lot more millennials in there. You're going to see a lot more suburbanites, a lot more independents, moderates, a lot more less evangelicals. And so it really is a true tale of two cities in that way of how different it will be. But ultimately, I do believe that Trump will win. To Amy's point on Nikki Haley, I don't believe there's much of a campaign there. And it's really sad. Anytime I speak with people here in England about American politics, to put it in perspective, Nikki Haley has spent $30 million in the last week on ads trying to prop herself up, even though she's trailing former President Trump by almost 14 points. So I don't believe that she can make it up, even if independents or even Democrats switch party affiliation on the day of. I do believe this is very much Trump's to take home.
So is Trump campaigning well, Catalina, or are the others campaigning badly?
Trump, he has always been the master campaigner. I've seen in a few different, B-roll shots of news that Nikki Haley is trying to be a retail politician. But the biggest issue between DeSantis and Nikki Haley, or what the issue of both of them, is that they're very poor campaigners when it comes to retail politics. They cannot connect with the voter. Nikki Haley, very much to the Trump base and the Republican electorate, is known to be a warmonger. She's very focused on foreign policy. DeSantis cannot really connect with voters, which is why he's had such a poor experience on the campaign trail. If you remember, he was one of the first to announce to go against Trump. And while he's been a good governor, that doesn't make him necessarily a good presidential nominee, whereas Trump can bring out the masses to come out to his campaign. He has more volunteers. He has more of a grassroots activist platform, and he has much more energy and momentum and enthusiasm in his base, which makes a Republican primary his to take home. Because at the end of the day, Republican primaries attract the highest propensity of voters. So those are the people who are motivated to come out. They're not the people who are apathetic and are who are going to stay home that might vote in a general election. But the people that vote in primaries are the most enthusiastic, and Trump has the enthusiasm behind him, not only for being a great campaigner, but also for his record as president of the United States. We saw record economic growth. We saw record low unemployment rates. Small businesses were thriving. American people were winning when President Trump was in office, to now you have the complete opposite happening under the Biden administration. So I think he's not only a great campaigner, but he actually produces results, which is a great solution when you have a politician. Most of the time, people are great at campaigning, but they don't really work hard, or once they get into office, they become more apathetic and they just want to stay in office. President Trump shows results, and he's also a great campaigner.
To what extent are those things that you talk about there, Catalina, the economic sort of impact of Trump versus Biden? And actually, that was something that our correspondent Louise has written about in the Sunday Times today, that one voter in New Hampshire called Megan says simply, if Donald Trump can sort of return turn my tank of fuel in my car to costing me $17 like it once was, then yay for him, is the direct quote from Meghan, the Republican voter. But to what extent has Joe Biden been a victim of circumstance? He is presiding over an economic situation that has impacted us in the UK. It's impacted other countries too when it comes to inflation and growth and these sorts of difficulties. So will he be cut any slack given the global economic pressures that he has been president during?
I don't believe so. I think the fundamental difference between in any sort of presidential administration, notoriously Republicans are for pro-growth economic policies and Democrats are for pro-government economic policies. And what we've seen under the Biden administration is he's doubled the deficit. You're seeing high interest rates now, and he now has 6 more reports to determine whether or not the economy is in a healthy position. 6 more reports between now into the election day to see if economic growth is even possible. And I don't believe that it is. I believe that he's, because he has pumped in more money from the government perspective, he's created a deficit, he's has pushed bad bills. You think about things like the student loan forgiveness, you think about the infrastructure bill, you think about closing down, selling off our strategic oil reserves. All these things hurt the economy in a way that he directly caused. This was not a matter of circumstance. And so I believe that he is directly at fault for some of these pro-government, anti-growth policies, his administration especially. And to Amy's point, the voter that you were mentioning in New Hampshire, it is very much that voters care, number one, about the economy. American voters care about the economy, both Republican and Democrat. And it's going to be the baby boomers, now pensioners that can't afford their grocery bills and they're on a fixed income that's going to decide it. It's going to be the millennials that can't afford their mortgages now because of high interest rates. It's going to be the Hispanic business owner whose restaurant is about to shut down because they can't afford high food prices. It's impacting everybody from an economic perspective, and that's going to be number one on people's minds heading into November.